Imagination, it's that building block, it's that beginning.
You will be given the steps and the help you need to get there. You're not stuck in this place in life.
Go and cultivate your imagination, dream big, and take action towards your goals, because that's what it's about.
So let's think and grow rich together.
Hey, champions, welcome to our wonderful edition of our virtual training and workshop on the principle of imagination. Now, this principle comes from Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich, which here at Champion Circle, we talk a lot about, especially when it comes to Napoleon Hill. And this is the fifth principle as we jump into the month of May. And as we jump into it, imagination plays a big part. And I can't wait for the speakers that we have today to be able to share exactly the experience and the wisdom that they have with this principle. We're going to first jump into our first speaker, which is Mr. Jon Kovach Jr., the founder and chairman of Champion Circle, the one who does it all and the one who goes out and crushes his dreams. So I'm introducing Mr. Jon Kovach Jr.
Thanks, Willie. And yes, I do it all. I wanted to say do at the beginning of this, and I just say I feel excited about this process, this concept, and this idea, because isn't this all just an idea? And isn't this an opportunity for you to say, you know what? If this is an idea that worked for millions of millionaires out there who started with nothing and have become something, wouldn't you want to also subscribe to that methodology, to that idea? Today, we're talking about the process of imagination. And Napoleon Hill describes imagination as the workshop of the mind. Our mind has so much incredible capacities and incapacities, meaning there are limits and there are no limits. Most of the limits are set by ourselves. But the unlimited list is when we are really feeling non-restricted, available to achieve anything that we really dream of or that we want to accomplish. We allow the walls of restrictions and the borders and the weight and the chains of limits to get in our way. But as children and as kids and as young minds, we didn't let any of that get in our way until influenced by adulthood or the other concepts that gave us reality. But the best place to really live is inside the mind. And that's why it's called Think and Grow Rich. Not grow rich, not get rich quick, not rich. It is think and grow rich, because it is your mind that is the workshop of creation. And that's really who we are. We are creators. The first point I put down that I wanted to share with you is actually a dig, but it's a joke. So don't take this too personal. But my first point is this: you're boring. And I wanted to say it that way because it's such a relevant concept. But I read a sign once at my college, my university. I was just about one semester left from graduating. And it was actually on somebody's keychain. It was a slogan, and I called it a sign, but it was a sign from the heavens that I was boring because I was letting things happen the way they were supposed to happen, the way that they cattled me into the herd as a future graduate who was going to go down the path of getting a career and doing all of the things that I was supposed to do. But that's what boring people do. What real, imaginative, exciting, accelerated, incredibly talented, limitless people do is they stray from the herd. They walk the road less traveled. And they do so because they don't know any better. And fear is a great way to stay with the herd, because fear keeps you close to others. Whereas limitless and fearlessness allows you to venture off and find your own path, because we all at some point need to find our own path. And if that path leads us back to the herd, our role in that particular culture or society is definitely what we need to focus on so that we can not be boring. But I say you're boring because the sign on the lanyard said the phrase, do something incredible today. And then on the back side of that lanyard, yes, this was in someone's pocket, and I grabbed it and I read it and I gave it back to him. No, I am not a pickpocketer, but it felt that way because it was so sneaky. But it said, do something incredible today. Stop being boring, is what the back of it said. And I thought about that and I was like, am I boring? Am what I doing is what I'm doing boring? Am I really going down this path of imagination where I'm allowing myself to implement and to do what it is that I really want to do? And I took that thought with me everywhere. Don't be boring. So I developed this idea, and it was kind of off of a social media post where somebody said that keep them guessing always. And it was just this idea that there's always someone watching. And if you believe in God, there is always someone watching, but not in the creepy way. It's in the positive way. But if there was a particular surveillance over us at all times, and that idea and that concept were to become reality, my concept or my motto would be always keep them guessing. That means going through a door backwards while chanting the American anthems, or doing something silly or fun, or always making people smile in different ways. Like, keep them guessing, but keep yourself guessing, because your imagination is the core creator. It is the workshop of the mind and your attitude and your behavior, but also the way you feel and the way you operate on a daily basis. So you're boring, stop being boring, do something incredible every single day. That's just a reminder to myself. And that's what I would say to you if you were really boring, but you're not. There you go, backtracking. But you're not. You are an incredible creator. You are a being with higher purpose and power. I shared vulnerably a story the other day about a concept that I created while speaking to a group of youth. And I shared with them how I was labeled with ADHD. And I actually, to be purely honest, don't have an official diagnosis from doctors. But based on all the checklists and all the online surveys, I have exactly what it describes. And the reason why is I don't need a diagnosis. I don't need any of that. But I have always known that my brain operates in a different way than normal. But as a kid with ADHD, or operating on the high functioning powers of ADHD, I learned the definition of what ADHD, that acronym, stands for. And it stands for Attention Deficit Hyperactive Disorder. And I thought to myself, oh, because someone said it, you are ADHD, or you have ADHD. And those two phrases, let's identify them. You are ADHD. So you're saying that I am an attention deficit hyperactive disorder? I believe that I was created by a God, and I don't think God would ever create one of his greatest creations as a deficit or a disorder. Let's go to the other phrase. I have ADHD. I don't know if a God, the God I believe in, would give me a deficit or a disorder in his eyes. I think he would have given me a power. In many ways, we call it a superpower. And it would have given me a tool to use to better reach and influence and help others. That's what I believe. And you can choose to believe what you want to believe. But I decided on one day, and I never looked back, that I am not a deficit or a disorder. And I believe that because that's where my mind goes. That's where my imagination takes me. So in order to not be boring, in order to be incredible and to do incredible things on a daily basis, I also have to believe that I am not what the world has labeled me as. And instead, I believe that it is a powerful tool in order to create and to help and to serve. I got to tell you that this has totally enabled me to create things without knowing, because I did not know the repercussions of what failure might be if I didn't succeed. And that is a story about Bob. And Bob stands for Battle of the Bands. You see, I was in an organization and they were looking to raise money, but they also had a very tight budget. And they were actually in the hole by thousands of dollars. And they were brainstorming ideas on how to overcome the deficit and to get back into the green, they call it. The green is when you're in positive net worth or have a positive cash flow. And without really wondering, like, what are the parameters? What are the boundaries? What are the yeses? What are the nos? I just threw out an idea and I said, you know what? Let's bob it. And they're like, what's bob it? And I said, Bob, Battle of the Bands. Duh. Everyone knows that a Battle of the Bands is something that people love to attend. It generates income. People want entertainment. They want to be able to listen to live music. They want to dance. They want to buy concessions. They want to get t-shirts. They want to have fun. Let's do a Battle of the Bands. And they all thought I was crazy. And I said, look, it could work or it couldn't. That's up to you to decide. But I believe it'll work. So if you let me do this, I'll keep the budget really low. I'll use all of our natural innate resources and watch how much money we can make. So they said, you know what? It's a risk. We'll let you go down this rabbit hole, Jon, but we're going to also plan on a few other applicable processes that we've done in the past that should work. And I said, great, you do you, I'll do me. And they really had no faith in me, but they were willing enough to give me the option of doing it, planning it, and creating it. Well, that's exactly what I did. I put posters all over. I said, Battle of the Bands on this date at this time. And I told everyone I knew. I went out and I started talking about it. And all of a sudden, I used the phrase, what about Bob? Or who is Bob? Or what is Bob? And I started creating questions in everyone's minds. And so people felt smart when they knew what Bob was. But when people who didn't know what Bob were, they would ask around and other people would say, oh, Bob, Battle of the Bands. And all of a sudden it became a thing. So now this creation of Bob became something that just started stirring around the population. And it came to the day of the Battle of the Bands. And I was reporting to my supervisors, letting them know that, hey, everything's set. We got a DJ equipment set up. We used very minimal budget. Concessions is there. I grabbed like 20 volunteers to help us run the event in case it's overflowing. And they just looked at me like, oh yeah, we forgot that you were going to do this idea. And they almost looked puzzled like, wow, it's the day of the event and we forgot that you were totally doing this. And I said, well, thanks for the vote of confidence, but we're going to do it anyways. I took a huge gulp and said, now I'm feeling the fear. If they don't even remember that I was doing that, does anyone remember? And I started questioning my own thoughts. I started questioning my own actions. But under reflection, I remembered that, you know what? I never thought that we wouldn't succeed. I always imagined that we could succeed because, again, I'm not a deficit or a disorder, but I have a power and it's a tool, and that these skill sets that I've gained are ways to help people grow and to make a difference. Well, it was 5 minutes before the show was to start and we had no one inside. And I remembered, oh yeah, we told everyone to line up outside the doors and we'll take people in as soon as the doors open. Why don't we just take a peek outside and see if we're ready to start admitting people? And in my heart, I said a tiny little prayer because I was like, I sure hope there's people out there. And second, I realized that, you know what, no matter what happens when I open these doors, I did what I knew I could do. And if 10 people show up, we'll give them the best show of their life. If 100 people show up, it's going to be a lot of fun. And we opened the doors, and imagine, because we're talking about imagination here, imagine 2 doors opening up and the sunlight's beaming through and you can't see anything but light until you see the silhouettes of human beings. And not only were there silhouettes of human beings as we opened up these doors, I heard the heavens sing as we opened them up, and I realized there were a lot more humans than I thought we had capacity. It was a line out the door, down the parking lot. It was so long that we needed to start admitting people now. And we actually needed to call in an extra security guard last minute to help balance this entire event, because we had over 500 people show up for this event at $10 a piece, plus concessions, plus tips, plus all of the things that went into this. We netted over $10,000 in this event, got ourselves out of the deficit we were in as an organization, and we had a great time doing it. Battle of the Bands was a hit. And to this day, at that organization, Bob is an annual tradition. And I walked away from the organization for years, and I came back and asked if they were still doing Bob. And they said, oh, yeah, Bob is a staple. And to those people who were naysayers who thought, you know what, John, run with it, do your thing, but we're going to work on a more practical sense, they were the ones who were stuck in their non-imaginative, boring attitudes. And I got to remind you that it is all about dreaming. It is all about your imagination. One quick reminder and last minute story here as I wrap up. And I want to tell you that I've used this same concept, which is I never believed it would fail. I never thought of it as an option. I never allowed that fear or that particular idea to creep in. Everything I've ever built was built on the idea that it will succeed. And that has become my motivation. That has become my imagination. And it has been the workshop of success in everything I've done, from becoming a collegiate athlete to becoming a #1 best-selling author to becoming a world-class international speaker. All of those things were because I just believed that I would succeed. Not because I knew the parameters, I knew the uphill battle, not because I knew all the things that entailed and went into the career choice of mine, but I went into it believing, you know what? Because I want to do it, I will succeed. And this is what I did with one of my businesses that led to Champion Circle today. And I call this my $20 million success story, which is we started designing how people could network and how they could discover relationships at accelerated rates and build connections and share business without feeling salesy, pushy, or just there to network and collect a bunch of business cards so that they could prospect you. Instead, we built valuable relationships through conversation, through activity, through recreational fun, and a few other concepts that were intermingled into the idea of education, learning, and application. And after 9 months of practicing and honing in on this skill set, my belief was that we would create value for people. And I never thought it wouldn't succeed. My imagination took me to places where I said, this is exactly what I want to do. And because of it, I found that I could do anything. And after following up with and learning from the participants in this particular networking association and this mastermind group, I discovered roughly that the amount of money transacted in 9 months between these people, because of the activities that we were doing on a weekly and monthly basis, led to over $20 million transacted. And that became a huge motivator and success story for me. And you know what? That $20 million wasn't even in my pocket. It was between the members of those exchanging business, helping each other out, building relationships, offering their services, and creating value amongst their own community. We had created a micro $20 million value revenue system for businesses and industries, and order to just grow and be in the room because of that value that was imagined and created. So whether it's a project like Bob, whether it's building a $20 million business or more, or it's as simple as closing your eyes, laying your head on a pillow at night, and letting your dreams, your imagination become your reality. Allow your mind to believe what you want to believe. Set zero limitations on yourself. Create as the true creator that you are. Your life, your business is a matter of value. And because you were so talented and so gifted, you are not boring. And every day you have the opportunity to do incredible things. My name is Jon Kovach Jr., and I believe this, and I empower you to take this challenge and to take this invitation to do incredible things and to join a circle or a group of champions who will continue to push you in the direction and also invite you and create a culture and community where the environment is set up for your personal success. That, for me, is what it's all about. I'm grateful for imagination and how it's been the workshop of my dreams. And I believe that Napoleon Hill was right when he said it best, that it is the workshop of the mind and you can make things happen. And I might sound like a broken record when I say this, but I say this every month when we do these trainings. The fastest way to accelerated growth is to write it down. Your thoughts, your dreams, your goals, your aspirations, your inspirations, your random whatnots that just come into your mind. Write them down. The transformation from thought to writing only leads to greater, better things. And if you put it away for years and come back to it, it'll still inspire you because it was an inspiration that came in a moment of when you used your mind. So let's think and grow rich together. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Jon, for your wonderful wisdom and wonderful experience with the power of imagination. It's really opened my mind to a lot of different things. And I just want to share my appreciation with that. The second speaker that we're going to jump up to is myself. I get the wonderful opportunity to speak with you about the principle of imagination. What if you don't hit your dream? I've heard this so many different times. What if you don't hit your dream? What if it never works out? But every single time I come back to it and I think, what if you do hit your dream? I have 3 little girls, and what they love is Disney. And one of their favorite movies is Tangled. In Tangled, you have Rapunzel and Flynn. Rapunzel has this dream. Every time on her birthday, when she was up in her castle, she could see the lanterns in the sky. Then she thought they were just stars. They're just like, oh, these stars that pop up in the sky every time. Then some guy named Flynn comes by and says, nah, brah, those are lanterns. She's like, well, let's go see them. And so she goes, and it goes through this whole experience of her getting to her dream. At that nighttime when the lanterns are lit, her and Flynn are in a boat, and they're singing that beautiful song that we all remember from that movie. But one of the things that Rapunzel questions is that as she thinks about her dream, she says, what do I do if my dream happens? And then Flynn, looking at her, says one of the most powerful quotes that I've ever heard Disney say, which is, well, then you get a new dream. I don't know how many of you have been able to experience getting a new dream, but it is an empowering thought. A lot of us might be stuck with thinking about, how the heck do I get this? One of the first things you need to do is to start with your imagination. You got to first start dreaming it. You got to first start wishing it. You got to start believing in it, that it's going to happen. So I want to talk with you guys about a principle of imagination. Now, imagination, it's the ability to form mental images. It's the concepts that we're able to think of in our mind. When we fall asleep and dream, it's our ability to fly. It's our ability to create things. Sure, we might have nightmares sometimes. Sure, we might fall asleep and wake up without dreaming. But in those moments when they happen, it's in a world where physics doesn't always work, where the laws of gravity, screw that. We don't need the laws of gravity. But you're able to do something that you've never been able to do before. And that's the power of dreaming, and that's the power of imagination. There is so much power in there when it comes to creativity, when it comes to problem solving. Think about any business that has ever been. It all started with a thought. And that thought led to a dream. And that dream led to them creating a blueprint. And that blueprint was then taken into action to build the business that you see today. There is so much power in imagination. Now, before I touch on why it's so powerful, I want to expand your vision a little bit. What is the best thing that you can do in your life today? You might think of it as taking care of my family, which is very important. You might think of it as drinking water so I don't die, which is very important. But I think one thing that is lost in a lot of things, and that's a God-given gift to us, is that we have the ability to choose what our future is. And that choice is a powerful thing when it comes to imagination, because we can expand our vision past the conventional boundaries, past what we think we could ever have before. But we're able to look beyond that. When I was a young kid, I wanted to be a vet. Absolutely. I loved animals. I love dogs. I love cats. All animals. Whenever I'd go to someone's house, people would be shocked because animals would just run up to me and they just love on me in the way that they love on me. And I'm like, oh, you're so cute. And they'd always say the phrase, oh, wow, my animal never does that to anyone. You must be a special person. And it's like, thanks for the compliment. But I loved animals. And, for those who have animals, people who love animals, there's just that innate thing that animals are like, those are people I want to be by because they love me. But that love for animals, it continued to grow and it continued to expand until I knocked down my dream. It was junior year in high school. And I went to a college. It was like a high school college they called J-Tech, where it's like you focus on specific things. You get a few college credits while you're in high school. Went to J-Tech, looked into their vet program. I walked into this room, and in here were the reptiles and the rats. And if any of you are like me, whenever you go to the zoo, I always avoid that part of it. I don't like going into the reptile section. I don't like seeing rats. Not my favorite thing. So I walked into the room, saw that, walked right back out, and lost complete desire in ever being a vet again. But then I was able to come up with a new dream. Now, I know some of you might be asking, well, Willie, what is the importance of you losing a dream? Isn't it about like that Rapunzel moment where you see the stars in the sky, where everything that you've been thinking about for the last 18 years happens? And then you find a new dream. Isn't that what it's all about? Sometimes it doesn't work that way. Sometimes you go towards a dream, something happens, and it falls by the wayside, and you got to think of something else. But that's the beauty of it. Imagination isn't limited by how many dreams you can have. Imagination is limited by us. And so I want you to expand your vision on your imagination, but I also want you to see the possibilities that it has. Because like I said in the very beginning, what if you don't hit your dream? This happened to me junior year. Ever since I was a kid, I wanted to be that vet. I got to dream again. I wanted to be a chef. Gordon Ramsay was the coolest my senior year of high school. I loved watching MasterChef. I loved watching Hell's Kitchen. I love watching Kitchen Nightmares. Anything that had Gordon Ramsay in it, I loved watching it. And I started working on becoming a chef and doing that hobby. Then as I got into it and got into my advisors and telling me about it, chefs at the time when they start out only make about $19,000 a year, which for someone who would eventually create a family and everything, that didn't seem like enough money to do it. So I lost that dream. Then I wanted to be a video game maker. I love video games. I thought it was the coolest thing in the world. I wanted to create my own, and everyone praised me for creating my own video game. Then I started working on it, realizing how much coding and stuff there was, and I dropped off the wayside. Then I wanted to be an accountant. Goodness gracious, how cool it was to want to be an accountant. Went into college, did a year and a half of accounting, and realized that even though I understood it, that wasn't for me. And then I jumped to the next dream, which was in business. I thought, oh, business management would be cool. I got my bachelor's degree and then didn't use it. And then I was able to dream again. I was able to be something that I wanted even as a kid, which was an author. I was able to write books. Then I thought about, oh, it'd be really cool to teach. So I go out and I'm able to speak on stages and everything. Now, Willie, you've thrown out so many ideas. What the heck does all of this have to do with imagination? What the heck does all of this have to tie into each other? I want to talk to two different people here. The first one is the person like Rapunzel. For the person who is dreaming for years and years and the dream comes true. And that question pops up, what can I dream of? What's next? Take Flynn Rider's quote of, you get to start a new dream. For the second people who, like myself, multiples of times, and it shows many weaknesses as I'm saying this out loud, what if I don't hit my dream? What then? Then for you, I want you to apply Flynn Rider's quote. Then you get a new dream. Whether you're someone who completes your dream, whether you're someone who takes in what they want but doesn't hit it, whatever spectrum you're on, I want you to know that it's okay to start a new dream. What's the process in that? The process in that is first overcoming the limiting beliefs that we have. All limitations are on ourselves. Every single limitation that we have is put on because of the thoughts that we have. And it can be so simple. I love Tony Robbins' activity where he says to stand up, and first he wants you to point your finger forward and turn around as comfortably far as you can. Some people get behind them, some people a little further. Then he says, close your eyes, and I want you to imagine yourself. Imagine yourself past the laws of physics, past what normal is. I want you to imagine yourself turning all the way around, just like an owl's head, turn all the way around to look the other way, where your body's contorting. Then he says, I want you to do the same thing. Lift up your finger, turn around, but I want you to turn to where you go on a full 360 and even more to a full 720, to where your body looks like a Twizzler in the Walmart aisle. Then after that, he says, okay, now I want you to open your eyes if they were closed, point your finger up and turn. And without a doubt, 99 out of 100 times, the person turns further than they did before. Was how far you turn a limiting belief that was on top of your mind? No. But it just goes to show you there are so many limiting beliefs that we have in our mind, that as we simply take the time to imagine, to be creative, to get into a mental state to where we break the laws of physics, that we'll see that there is so much more that we can do. And so as I wrap this up to a close, I want to challenge those two people I talked about, the ones who got their dreams and the ones who haven't got them. My challenge for you is to imagine yourself for 15 minutes each day. Whether this is in the shower, whether this is laying in bed before you go to sleep, whether this is in the morning during your meditation routine. I want you to close your eyes and imagine a world that is working for you. Imagine a world that you have dreamt of. And I want to tell you how specific you need to be. Very. You need to be very specific. We're talking about jump into the physical. How is your body? Do you got a six-pack? Do you got muscles bulging out of your t-shirt? Are you hydrated? Do you feel healthy? Do you have unlimited energy? On the mental side, are you considered a wise individual? Are you someone who's a constant learner and reader? Are you someone who has books stacked up on the side of their nightstand and every night you read a book? Yes, every night you read a different book and finish that book. We're in imagination stage. We're not limiting anything right now. Jump into the social side. You walk into a room, everyone runs at you and wants to shake your hand and take a picture and get an autograph and see how your day's doing. Jump into the spiritual and emotional side of your self-love. How would it feel if you had so much love within yourself that everything else in the outside world was a bonus? Think about the house you want to live in. Is it red brick? Is it blue brick? Do you live in a purple and green house like Barney? Goodness gracious, I haven't said that reference for a while. How deep in detail are you wanting your imagination to go? Your only limitation is yourself. So I want you to take 15 minutes each and every day to have that creative time, have that imagination time. Because as you do, and you embrace imagination, and as you embrace believing in the limitless possibilities, that you are going to achieve extraordinary success. Not simply because you're different than you were 10 minutes ago, but simply because you dropped the belief that you had a limitation in your life. Go imagine yourself being better. Go and cultivate your imagination, dream big, and take action towards your goals, because that's what it's about. Because the master is the master, because the master has tried more than the novice has failed. So go out, write your story, and try. I'm grateful I was able to share my thoughts with you guys on the topic of imagination. I would love to bring up the next speaker that we have, Miss Lauren Cobb, who is a wonderful mother, entrepreneur, and one of the hardest working people that I know. So I'm going to turn the time over to Miss Lauren.
Thank you, Willie. I am excited for today. Imagination is really the point of beginning, right? All of our beginnings come from something we have imagined, and it's what gets us to where we want to go. I want to start out with a quote from Napoleon Hill. It says, "The imagination is literally the workshop wherein are fashioned all plans created by man. The impulse, the desire, is given shape, form, and action through the aid of the imaginative faculty of the mind. It has been said that man can create anything which he can imagine." Napoleon talks about two different types of imagination. There is synthetic imagination and creative imagination. Synthetic imagination comes from, he talks about in the form of like an engineer. Engineers use synthetic imagination all the time. It's through problem solving and what is got to be going on behind the scenes to be causing this problem. What do we need to do to make these wheels turn? Like, that is synthetic imagination. And I feel like a lot of times in my life, I have fallen into that unknowingly, right? Like, we all have been there. I really want to focus, like others have, on creative imagination. A few years back, my husband and I were a couple years into building our business, and things seemed to be mundane and boring again. And one day it was just like, we feel like we're kind of back where we were, like living day to day, not having anything exciting going on. And it was kind of like a big letdown, because here we were living the entrepreneurial dream, working from home, working on our own timetable, doing the things we wanted to do with our kids when we wanted to do them. And yet life wasn't fulfilling. And it was really hard to accept that. And for a while, it was just like, oh, we just need to be more thankful for what we have. We need to, realize this great thing that we're doing, which is all true and good. However, we brought that up in one of our masterminds, and the realization came is that we had stopped dreaming. We had stopped thinking big. You know, when we built our business, we had that dream, we had that desire, and it was really weird to realize that we had stopped dreaming to the top of that dream. The ceiling was starting our own business and having our own freedom of time, and we stopped there. So of course things were boring, and you know, we didn't have any plans beyond that. And so it was really weird. Unknowingly, we had put a limit on ourselves. We had put a limit on our capacity to dream. While exciting and scary, taking the leap to become an entrepreneur, burning your bridges, things like that. Like I said, we put achieving that was the ceiling of our dream at the time. And so what we really had to do was dig deep and build another dream. And it was really weird because we hadn't done that. It took us a few years to get where we were at. And it was like, well, what do we dream of? You know, what more is there? And of course, there was a lot more. We could tell that we were bored. We were, you know, just living day to day, but we literally couldn't figure out another dream. And it was just so weird to me. I've always been somebody who loves fun, loves adventure, you know, and to sit there and be like, I don't know what's going to bring me this desire and this excitement of having, like, what am I going to dream of next? And so I love it because Napoleon Hill talks about this imagination being like a muscle. If you don't use it, you're going to lose it, right? Like I can tell that in my arms, you know. I got to get back to my arm exercises. I had lost that muscle to be able to like dream creatively and have that excitement. So we had to dream again and imagine what more we wanted and what was going to give us that fulfillment and happiness we were looking for. It goes on in the book and he says, only when the conscious mind is functioning at exceedingly high level of intensity or energy, for example, when the conscious mind is stimulated through the emotion of a strong desire. So it's not just saying like, oh, I want to go to Disneyland. It's like, what is going to be that dream, that what's going to give me that desire to get up every day and keep going, to get up every day and go pound the pavement, to do whatever I have to do to get to that dream. It says the high energy comes from having that burning desire to solve a problem. The ideas or thought vibrations from seemingly nowhere will appear, which will help you achieve your goal. So you have to get yourself into that imaginative state. And I love, we've done an exercise here with Champion Circle where we call it, it's like build upon. And so somebody comes up with an idea. Say we're going to throw a birthday party for our friend John. What's going to be at that birthday party? You know, and you get silly with it. You get creative and you say an idea and somebody else next to you adds upon it. And you come out with this crazy, silly adventure that you guys are going to have. And it really took activities like that to break it down in my brain to be able to have these exciting dreams again. And I'm so thankful for the steps, because if you read Think and Grow Rich, if you surround yourself with people who are doing the same, you will be given the steps and the help you need to get there. You're not stuck in this place in life that you're not meant to be feeling down and just like there's nothing else for you. But if you don't take action, you will notice that the frequencies of those creative insights will diminish. You know, you've got to take those steps and keep building upon them. It goes on to say, when we use our creative imagination, it becomes more alert and we are more open to using that imagination. And just like I said before, it's a muscle, and if we don't use it, you're gonna lose it. I was reading an article, and it talks about the reason why many musicians and actors tend to do their greatest work early in their careers is because they come out of the gate with that dream, that imagination of they're going to be something big, right? And they have that, and they're doing everything they can to get that. I love the show American Idol. I was watching it last night, and you can see that ambition in those artists' face. When they come out on stage, they're getting critiqued, they're getting feedback, but they have all that ambition because they have the desire to win that competition, because that competition gives them easy access to achieve their dreams, to become that famous person and earn money making music and singing. And so looking at things like that, like, what do you see in yourself? What do you need to do to be able to dream like that again? What dream do you have that you've been sitting on just because you're like, I'm never going to get there, right? I'm never going to get to do that. And so for me, for Ty and I, is we sat down to write our dreams and our ambitions, and it was actually really hard, like I mentioned. And it was so weird that I couldn't tap into that right away. It honestly took us a week or more to be able to come up with like this big dream that we wanted, right? Like, you can throw out, like I said, going to Disneyland, I'm going to go do this, we want to travel, but what is above that? What drives you to do that? Why do you want to go travel? Is it to learn? Is it to be able to go serve people around the world? Is it to reach a higher audience of people? You've got to think of those things. Like I said, been said before, you need to write those things down and have a definite why to your dream. And then your imagination can kick in and help you fill in those gaps of where you need to go to be able to achieve that. Napoleon goes on to talk about how we have the power to obtain these things ourselves. It's all within us. And in Think and Grow Rich, he teaches us the mastermind methodology. And so using the people around you, the people in your realm, take your dreams that you have written down and you go and you talk it through, mastermind. It is rare that we can get there alone to achieve our dreams. We have to have the people who have the other specialized knowledge, the other pieces to our puzzle to get there. It is, like I said, very rare that you will get there alone. And if you do, I want to know how you did it. But in closing, I just love, I love the imagination because it really has given me a new aspect on life. I've been able to do more things in these last few years than I ever thought possible. Teaching at retreats, going and being with people, like-minded people who are there to help me achieve my dreams, and celebrating together. And so I challenge you to take a few moments each day to dream. Dream about what you would be doing if you had all the free time that you desired, if money weren't a problem, and then write it down. And then go share it with people in your circles. And next, pray to have that burning desire to do whatever you have to do to achieve it. And with that, I wrap it up that if you do those things, you will find success. You will grow in your personal life and your business life. Going from living paycheck to paycheck, day to day, doing the same routine thing, to dreaming and knowing that there's no endless point to it, that we can keep dreaming and keep achieving those things, has changed our lives forever. And I am so grateful to be able to share that with you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Lauren, for your insights and valuable wisdom with inspiration, with imagination. We're going to jump into our final speaker, who is the wonderful, the tenacious, the ambitious Mr. Ian Stermer, who's going to finish us off on his experiences and knowledge on imagination.
Well, thank you. And I can't begin to imagine where this journey might take us. Well, for those of you who are just listening and not on the actual watching the video of this, I'm going to lean in a little bit and kind of focus and see eye to eye with, as I look you in the eye as we talk about this. And I say that because for those of you that are just listening, you might have kind of pictured what I just did and how I sat up. So while you're still in that imagination mode, I'm going to do a little experiment here. I want you guys to close your eyes, and there's a few of us on here. Close your eyes. Now, I want you to picture nothing. Okay? So I won't ask you to actually say this, but what nothing did you think of? Because the fact is, we can't imagine nothing. The first time I ever heard this, I pictured this big glowing neon sign that read nothing. I pictured nothing, but it was a something of a nothing. And the fact is, our brains can't stop imagining. We can't erase anything from our mind. We can't, I should say, we can't erase everything from our mind. Sometimes we can't erase anything from our mind and it just keeps going. But our minds are always working. They're always filling in the areas that we don't know, the areas we can't see. So the question is that imagination going to free you or is it going to limit you? Now, before Roger Bannister came along, it was a fact that the human body could not run a 4-minute mile. It was simply a fact. And I'll confess, I don't know Mr. Bannister's story quite well enough to know if he imagined it or it just kind of happened. But once he broke that 4-minute mile, suddenly a 3-minute and 59-second mile was not out of the question, or a 3-minute and 58-second mile. Now, a 3-minute mile, is that physically possible? I don't know. But right now, we currently stand at 3 minutes and 43.13 seconds as the fastest mile ever run. Could that ever become 3 minutes and 42 seconds? Well, that doesn't sound that hard to get to. So even the physical body, there's physical limits, we know, but we don't know where those are. And we continually place in our imagination limits that stop us for no other reason than the fact that we put that limit there. Why would 4 minutes be an impossible number to beat? Well, obviously, because it's a round number. No one ever said a 3-minute and 57-second mile is the absolute limit, because that's not a nice round number. So we put these numbers, these ideas in our mind. We set these limits for no reason other than that we set these limits. We create in our minds obstacles and decide that we can't overcome them simply because we created the obstacle and told us we can't overcome them. There's no math, there's no fact, there's no physics behind these limitations that we set. But on the other side, imagination can free us. It can open up things that we didn't realize were possible before. And if we learn to use that imagination as a tool. Now, I'm a huge fan of Albert Einstein. Not only was he a brilliant man, but he was just an amazing the way he thought about things. And he kind of famously, as I paraphrase this, when he was asked what it was like to be smart, or was he the smartest man, he would say he didn't think that he was particularly smart, but he was very curious. And in his early days, most of us have heard of the theory of relativity. He said that started, he understood some of the physics and math behind it, but his general theory of relativity started when he was sitting down one day and he asked himself, what would it be like to ride on a beam of light? And then he closed his eyes and he imagined himself sitting on a beam of light, flying through space at the speed of light. And he looked around him and he saw another beam of light beside him. And he realized that that beam of light looked like it was standing still because it was traveling at the same speed he was. But when he looked the other direction, he saw everything flying by in a blur because he was going so much faster. And the idea of relativity in super simple terms is the way things look or behave depends on the perspective you see them from. But Einstein achieved this idea because he could imagine it first. He pictured it in his mind, not just a daydream, although he did confess that he started out daydreaming a lot. But then he took those daydreams and he built on those. And he added in the knowledge he has to those daydreams. And he put details in them. And he used his imagination to lay a foundation for some of the least imaginative things you can imagine. Okay, there's a bad turn of phrase. The least imaginative things you can imagine, like mathematical equations of physics, concrete laws of physics and how things operate. He got because he imagined them first. He pictured them. He created that in his mind. And everything really is created in our mind first. One of my favorite sayings that I use a lot is everything that mankind has ever achieved from the dawn of creation was once something that never existed, was once something that had never been done. Everything was once never done, never seen, never imagined, until someone thought it, did it, imagined it, experienced it, whatever. There's always, well, everything was a never until it was a once happened. And our imagination is the key to that. We can create things that we want in our mind, and we can understand how things are going to happen. Now, one of my hobbies I have is I sit around and think of business ideas. I wonder how that business idea would work. And I get an idea in my mind, and so far, almost all of them have never come to fruition, and I realized that they wouldn't because of my imagination. But one time I thought, young families traveling have a terrible time getting a stroller through the airport, and it takes so much space and all that. What if you had a stroller rental kiosk at the airport? So I started thinking about that, and I would literally, when I went to bed, lay down, close my eyes, and I would imagine that kiosk, and I would put it at different places in the airport. I would see myself standing on there at the kiosk. I would picture my customers coming up, and I would imagine them coming up and asking for a stroller, a double stroller, a septuplets stroller, if they make one that big. And as I did that, I would imagine going to manufacturers and buying them and where I would store them. And the more detail I imagined this idea, the more I realized it would not work. It wasn't going to. But I realized that because I took my imagination and not just a floating daydream, but I directed it and built as much detail into that as I could, and recognized that my idea was not a good one. Now, if somebody listening finds a better way to do it and makes their millions, you owe me lunch. And I want the large size fries with that too. But the idea is that our imagination can free us to new ideas. It can give us new perspectives in doing it. And as we learn to control and harness our imagination, it may lead us to new things that we never imagined, to new heights. It may teach us that we need to redirect our efforts and our thoughts into a new way, that we need to find that new dream that the wonderful Mr. Blake talked about as he went through and realized that his imagination started one direction. And as he saw that, said, no, that's not what I want. And he created a new dream and imagined that and built on that. Or it may be like Bob, that turns out to be just the right idea, as Mr. Kovach taught us, that we can take these ideas, we can build on them, imagine them, and create them. But they all start with that imagination. They start with us building on it and allowing it to grow. As Lauren taught us, we need to continue growing that, to not let that limit us, not stop us with our imagination, but continue to grow. And the more we learn to focus that and picture that, the more it frees us. And it can free us in many, many ways. I had to look at my notes to find my name there. Colonel George Robert Hall had a great experience that he talked about with using his imagination to free him. He was a fighter pilot in the Vietnam War who was shot down and captured. And he was confined in this small 7-foot by 7-foot cell. And most people would just go into despair at that point. But he was an avid golfer. And he learned to play golf in his mind. He said it wasn't just imagining being there, but he would smell the grass, feel the wind. He would see the ball, he would get ready and he would swing and hit that. And he would imagine the wind and the distance and how hard he swung. And he knew that was a 240-foot drive, or he knew that or yard drive, sorry, not foot drive, that'd be a little short, 240-yard drive or a 300-yard drive. And he would go through his favorite course time after time, because he knew that course well enough that he could imagine every little nuance as he did that. And that imagination freed his mind while his body was trapped in a horrible circumstance, but allowed him to be happy, to be able to not fall into that despair. Now, I heard a story of that he went out and played his first game when he was freed and got his best game ever. I'm not sure if that's true, but I'm going to use my imagination and say, yes, he did. He got his best game ever because he had created in his mind, and he had practiced that swing so much in his mind. And when you practice that, when you see that, when you imagine that, you can achieve that. And I know that's a fact because, again, Mr. Kovach here, Mr. Jon Kovach, one of his jobs has been a coach for high school athletes. And one of his athletes that he had trained mentally to give her the mental discipline to win. And she won one of her races and she was being interviewed afterwards. So he kind of snuck a little closer because he wanted to hear what she was saying. And the interviewer said, how did it feel to cross that finish line first? And her response was, well, I knew I was going to do that because I had done it in my mind so many times before. So it was just expected because I had created it in my mind. And once you've created it in your mind, you can achieve it in real life. And I'm going to flip that real quick and say, if you can't imagine it, you will not achieve it. But if you can imagine it, then there's a chance to achieve it. There's a way. And all you have to do is walk outside and look, and you will see things that people have created in their mind and achieved. Things that 100 years ago or 500 years ago would be unimaginable, like cars or this computer that you're watching and listening to this on. The fact that we can be in different rooms and be looking at each other. That took someone's imagination to create first. And then they went out and achieved it. So imagination, it's that building block, it's that beginning. So I'm going to finish with that quote that I said before. Everything that mankind has ever achieved was once something that had never been done. And because of people's imagination, because they created it in their mind, they were able to go out and create it in real life. So use your imagination, create it in your mind, and then we'll talk later on in the future parts of this series to go and do it. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ian, for, man, what a great ending. What a great way to end that and to wrap it up with imagination. Thank you for our speakers for speaking today. And more importantly, thank you for you champions for tuning in and listening to this virtual workshop, because we love Napoleon Hill. We love his principles, but more importantly, we love champions. We love individuals who are willing to grow, to be high achievers and the high performers in their life. We love people who love to share their insights rather than keep it in. And we love people who can imagine bigger than average people who don't, right? We're not here to be average. We're here to be the heroes in our own lives, the legends in the world, and the champions in our own circles. So I want to thank you, listeners, for joining us. If you guys found inspiration in this, go ahead and you can follow our other links on our social medias, as well as other links to our events. You can find all of those at www.mychampioncircle.com. We'd love to hear what challenge you're taking on and what action you're going to do to immediately take to be able to hit to where you need to go. Until next time, champions, continue to imagine and continue to believe. We'll see you on the next workshop.